Okay. It's 1:31, and this meeting is called to order of the Corpus Christi B Corporation, Type B. Ms. Box, will you call the roll?
Yes, sir. President Alan Wilson.
Here.
Vice President Diane Summers.
Here.
Secretary Jesus Jimenez.
Here.
Mark LaRue.
Here.
Victoria Holland. Okay. I believe we're waiting for Ms. Holland to join us online. And the same with Johnny Filippello. Johnny, have you joined online? Not yet. Okay. Vishnu Reddy is absent. City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
All right. Quorum of the board is present to conduct the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open to public comment now. I know that there's at least one or two that want to talk, so if you'll come forward, and I think public comment, is it like 3 minutes? Is there a limit?
For council meetings, yes, it's generally 3 minutes, so if you wanted to use the same time, we could.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to speak? Come on up.
If you could state your name and city of residence for the record, please.
My name is Robert Smitchell, District 5, and I'm the president of ABC Irrigation, Inc. We started our business in 1987. In 2006, we became incorporated, and the company name is now ABC Irrigation, Inc. We've been deeply impacted by the drought restrictions, leading to a 22% revenue decline from 23 to 24. In June of last year, we became proactive and hired a marketing company to advertise on Facebook and Instagram. We expanded our services to include gravity drains, sump pump drains, installation of synthetic turf, sod, hardscapes, tree pruning, stump grinding, along with landscape cleanups. After spending thousands of dollars on marketing, the Facebook and Instagram yielded minimal returns. We terminated the marketing campaign. We then turned to our Podium telephone platform. We have sent 3 batches of bulk text messages to 1,636 of our existing customers. This resulted in 160 return phone calls, and this resulted in numerous irrigation repairs and 6 projects from the new services listed above, which resulted in an additional $59,000 in additional revenue between the months of June in 24 to January 25. We have now exhausted our Podium platform. As of January 31st, we laid off 5 experienced employees. Now, with only my wife, son, and myself remaining, we are fighting to keep our business alive. A grant from the city would allow us to adapt, retain critical services, and rebuild jobs within our community. We are committed to serving our city and ask for your support weathering these challenging times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Schmitzel.
Yes, sir.
We got one of those texts. Yes, sir. State your name. And
My name is Sean Christopher, and I'm the owner of Seascapes. And I don't have anything written, but I can tell you what's going on with us. When we went to stage 2, our business declined considerably, but we were still in business, still working, still holding on. When we went to stage 3, we've lost all our business. We had jobs that we were working on cancel in the middle of the jobs because we weren't quite to the landscape portion of it, and we had all our landscape contracts that we had signed, sealed, ready to go, canceled because of the water restrictions. So we haven't worked since stage 3 went into place. Right now, I'm working on a landscape that's at my own house that I'm doing just a pure xeriscape landscape that can survive 30 days of watering and no water. And I'm hoping to put that out online so people can start seeing it and seeing that there's alternatives to the planting that we've been doing. But we have been paying out of our own pockets for the last 3 weeks, our employees, to the trucks bills, the equipment bills, the insurance bills. We're deciding whether we hold on to insurance or got a big job lined up in about 2-3 months that has a well at it, so we'll be working there for 2-3 months, but we have to survive to get there. And I'm trying to hold on my employees. We've dropped from 8 employees down to 4 employees, and obviously this has affected all the landscape companies, the irrigation companies, the nurseries, on and on and on tremendously. So your support will greatly be appreciated and will definitely help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Garcia. I own 360 Landscape and Irrigation, District 2, and I just want to echo what my colleagues are saying. We've gone from 10 employees down to 4 employees. It's been a rough road. Obviously, if we don't have water, we don't get service calls. But in the interim of that, I'm going to echo what John said. What Mr. Sean said. Your insurances, we can't do business without COIs. We can't do business without workers' comp. And those bills don't stop. They just keep coming. And we have to continue to stay in business because I want the city's communities to know that they can call on reputable companies that are insured, that are licensed through the state of Texas, that are going to stand behind their work, because that's what means. At the end of the day, that's what's important. If we install a system and you have no warranty, then that's your investment, that's your home. And so we thank you for helping us in this time so we can get to the other side of the situation, keep our employees, and you know what, keep reputable people taking care of our community. Peter, I thank you. I thank Carolyn Vaughn and everyone else for helping us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else?
Hello, my name is John Holzenbach. I live at 2134 Flower Bluff Drive, and I own Hebert Irrigation. We have laid off, kind of an echoing of everything else, but we've laid off over 20 employees. We're down to 11. We were a company that had 40 at peak summer, so we've been drastically affected as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, everybody. I'm not much of a speaker. My name is Jerry Workman. I own Padre Palms and Landscape Nursery in Flower Bluff, probably one of the largest nurseries here in town. And I'm not quite in the situation these guys did. I have some jobs that are going on, and I'm keeping my employees busy at this point in time. But my concern is mainly, and I really do appreciate y'all trying to help us out, but is the long term. So, you know, I'm sitting on probably $100,000 worth of inventory. How can I sell it to a person that can't water their plant? It's kind of what we're coming up against when people come in to see us, you know. And of course, like Sean said, we definitely need to look into going into the xeriscape. We're doing the same thing. We're going to be bringing in those types of plants that can do, but there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be pushing against looking like New Mexico, you know, where everything is just rock and you got a cactus here or there. And the only other thing that I'd like to say personally is that I think we really, really need to start looking on how we're going to fix this problem. I think, you know, we do these stages, but at those stages we should have been doing a lot more at that time, opening up the wells that you have been talking about drilling. Why weren't those drilled 2 years ago and been pumping water the whole time? There's a lot of other things that we need to look at, and I'm not blaming anybody, but I just think it really needs to be looked at, and we do appreciate your help, and anything you can do to help us stay in business, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments in the room? Ms. Box, are there any online?
No, sir. Victoria did join us online, though.
Okay. And is Mr. Filipello on?
No, not yet.
Okay. See, no minutes, no financial report, correct? So the first agenda item is public hearing and motion to approve an agreement with the City of Corpus Christi for $2.4 million for the repair of arterial and collector streets within the city. Is there a staff presentation, Mr. Vasquez?
Good afternoon, Arturo Marquez, Director of Economic Development. And yes, the way that this item reads is essentially for the item that we've been talking about, which is the creation of a program for drought resiliency to assist small businesses. I'll explain a little bit of the language as the way that it's read on the actual agenda, but I'll go through the presentation first. And then if my voice kind of squeaks, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get over a cold here, so please don't mind that. So anyway, so we are talking about the Small Business Drought Resilience Program. Again, just a quick recap from last time. It began on December 16th when we as a city entered into stage 3 water restrictions. And the limits have, of course, impacted negatively some of the, not some, but a lot of small businesses. Primarily landscapers were forced to cut services. The mobile car washes were restricted from doing operations. Nurseries, as we've heard already, are struggling with the decline in sales, and the irrigation companies are, if anything, one of the ones that were mostly hit during these water restrictions. With revenue losses and job cuts increasing, as we've heard right now, the city's Office of Economic Development is proposing to create a small business drought resilience program to provide financial relief and protect the local businesses from shutting down completely. Excuse me. So the goal is to provide financial relief to the small businesses impacted by the water restrictions. And the way that would work is that we could grant up to $50,000 per impacted business with administrative fee, which would be administered by, I'll explain an administrative fee in a second, but which would be administered by LIFT Fund, which of course comes with administrative fees, which I'll mention in a little bit. To qualify under these, under this program, the business must be located within the city limits of Corpus Christi, of course. They have to have been in operations at minimum 12 months before they submit the actual application. And they have to demonstrate that they continue to do business at the time of the applications. They do have to have at minimum one full-time employee and show at minimum a 20% decrease year over year of sales since the water restrictions began. They, of course, have to be in good standing with the Texas Comptroller's Office, and, of course, be paid if they do own any property with the city, if they do have an account with us. Business must be directly affected by the current drought restrictions also. Okay. So as we heard today, there's already some of this going on with some of the businesses, but the grant is meant to assist in diversifying some of their operations. Again, we're thinking about this in some way of long term. We have not heard any specific dates as to when the drought restrictions will end, so we want to make sure that we help the business, or at least tell the businesses to consider something that will diversify their operations in case this continues longer than we expect. Businesses with multiple locations may apply separately for different locations. So that's something that was not mentioned last time. The application is on a first-come, first-served basis. And part of the administrative fee that is embedded into paying LIFT Fund will include the creation of a website, which the application will be embedded on there. Of course, we would work with LIFT Fund with the city's resources also to, of course, market this program using both website, social media, and some email campaigns. And the review process will be LIFT Fund will verify and remove any incomplete or duplicate applications. The disbursement of the funds will begin 10 days after the application, so it will be a fast turnaround for anybody that's applying. And we do intend to get biweekly reports from LIFT Fund to the city about the process and about the progress. About the progress of this program. We do anticipate to having a final report, just because we do intend for these funds to go out pretty quickly, to get a final report from LIFT Fund by July 31st of this year to see how these funds were administered. Now, the Type B Board would approve the transfer funding equal to the amount of the assistance proposed to the City of Corpus Christi using the Streets and Maintenance Fund for arterial and collector streets that are already scheduled, which those are listed on the actual agenda, the language on the agenda. And the Type B transfer will replace the city's general fund to fund this program. Part of the reason being is because, as we've heard today, the jobs that are being lost are not necessarily defined or would be defined as primary jobs, which of course is the essence of the Type B Board. This is more of a business retention effort, which therefore we need to think of a different way to be able to fund this, and general fund would be that method. Okay. This program will provide critical financial relief for small businesses, excuse me, affected and ongoing water restrictions. As I mentioned, it would support job retention and hopefully get in the conversation of what long-term solutions we can come up with. And approval of this small business drought resiliency program ensures economic stability in Corpus Christi during the drought, which again, we do not have an exact date of when this will end. So for that, I open it up for questions.
Do any of the board members have questions? Ms. Summers?
Thank you. It's my understanding from watching last week's council meeting that the landscaping and irrigation companies with Drew Molly and his team at CCW revisited the drought restriction plan, and there's been revisions to that plan that are going to be presented for final reading tomorrow. And a lot of, I think, the stage 3 restrictions that are really so financially impactful are being rolled back. Is that correct?
Yeah. So tomorrow is the update on the drought contingency plan. Excuse me, on the drought contingency plan. City Council last Tuesday had the first reading and presentation, and since that time we met with a few more stakeholder groups to include here in the chambers. We had a community forum where anybody could come in and give us their feedback and ideas, and that was 6 o'clock to 7:30 last Wednesday. So we've met with the Builders Association more closely. We had that open forum. We also met with the large volume users, the industry, through their partner group, their industry trade group.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stage 3 is going to be going back to what the stage 2 standards are.
To some extent. So through our meetings with the landscapers and irrigators and nurseries, we all agreed that hand watering would be allowed, and that's the biggest change. However, irrigation of lawn is not included. That just takes too much water. So the landscapers were fine with saying let's at least take care of shrubs and trees that are planted at a residential or commercial location. But lawns just take too much water. With the exception of this, if it's a brand new home, you can apply for a 30-day exemption to have an irrigation system used in that 30-day period.
And so that only applies to new homes, not if you're laying sod at any home, you can't get an exemption?
Let's see, Heather. Yeah, I think it may be, it could, I think it was just new homes, if I'm not mistaken, because the assumption would be an established home has some type of grass in there, even if it was maybe not the most optimal. So this is just for new builds where it's going to be dirt in the front and backyard. So any new residential property, the thought was most likely will have some type of ground cover that minimizes dust and mud if there is a small rain event.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we've also touched on mobile car washes being impacted, right. And they're going to be able to go back to doing washes at residences on recycling days, which was the same standard as in stage 2.
They would be, they would be able to do that, but not with a hose, but with a 5-gallon bucket of water. Would be that, yeah.
And then this was moved forward and I think it was discussed that, you guys needed immediate relief, so this was moved forward for final reading tomorrow.
Yes, right. This is on the city council agenda for tomorrow.
It was quite a
Yeah.
meeting last week.
Yeah, it's contingent upon this vote here. That's what we told the council in their meeting. And so tomorrow, right now it's posted for a 2-reading ordinance, but we need to have it 1-reading ordinance tomorrow. So that if it gets approved today, then it'll also get approved tomorrow at city council immediately.
Okay.
It'll become effective immediately. The same is true for the drought contingency plan. Once that gets approved, if it does get approved tomorrow, it will become effective the next day.
Okay.
On the 12th, on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a few additional questions. I don't mean to take everybody's time. The 20% decline, you said there's no time frame in our packet as to when that starts. So is it as of when stage 2 went into effect, or stage 3?
No, the intent of the 20% decline is at the time of the application, year over year, they have to show proof that, let's say they submit the application, let's say in March. The revenue that they received in March 2024 versus the revenue they received now in March 2025.
Over a year's time frame?
Yeah, which is the reason why we implemented that they have to have been in business for a minimum of 1 year, or 12 months before the application.
Okay. And the $50,000 grant, it's up to, the minimum is 1 employee. How did we reach to the number 1 on a single employee?
Yes, so some of the businesses that have reached out are sole proprietors. Again, these are businesses that we don't necessarily want to shut down, but have been affected by this. So there's a pretty long range, or pretty big range of the number of employees that these businesses have.
So there's no scaling of the grant given based on the retention of the amount of jobs. So it's $50,000 for 1 job versus $50,000 to a business that employs 20 people.
Essentially, well, it really depends on the revenue loss too. So it's not necessarily a $50,000 given just automatically to the business.
Okay.
We intend to work with Lift Fund to create that formula.
Okay, so it's up to, so what is the scaling based off of?
That's something that we're finalizing with Lift Fund. I don't necessarily want to give out any wrong information until we finalize that with Lift Fund.
Okay.
The ceiling though is 50,000 per grant, right?
I'm sorry?
The ceiling would be 50,000.
Yeah, the ceiling would be 50,000. That's the maximum amount that.
But we don't have any measurements of, in order to get this amount, you have to, retain an X amount of jobs. We don't have any of that criteria.
No, and again, the reason why we don't want to necessarily put in like the retention of, let's say, for a minimum of 5 jobs is because these companies really not range, but they vary widely.
And I understand that. I just think that's important information for us to understand. It's not going to be an automatic 50,000 per grant given, and these are the parameters and how that's measured.
Correct.
And I feel like that's information that's missing from this coming before us. I think my ultimate concern, I really do feel for all of these businesses. I'm in a business that also is impacted by environmental conditions and changes in city ordinances. I understand where you are. But my concern as a board member here is that, are we setting ourselves up down the road by setting a precedence of choosing, winners and losers here? With the change in city policies, I'm relieved to hear that it's going to provide immediate relief to these businesses with the changes. But are we opening the door for other businesses to come before us asking for grants to cover financial impacts for changes in city ordinances or environmental conditions? And if we got to critical, we're opening that door up to hundreds of businesses that are going to come that are financially impacted as well. So that's my biggest concern with this program.
Yeah, can I respond to that? Arturo doesn't have the history that some of us do, but this is not unprecedented. COVID was the first time we did this, and this program is pretty much modeled after that program. So with COVID, many businesses were eligible for a similar program. I think the maximum was 25,000 And that included small businesses, salons, nail places. And so this one would be a limited scope project here. There's a lot of things that could happen, but the drought is really one that's having a big impact on these 4 businesses: the landscapers, the irrigators, the nurseries, and the mobile car washes. So if there are other scenarios out there, we'll have to monitor, evaluate. We don't see anything right now in the near future from an environmental or unforeseen condition like this drought of record. So, but this is limited scope just to those 4 businesses, and it does have a limited financial amount of the $2 million.
And I guess, how was the decision made to take this from streets?
So the Type B funds can't be used. We would be here trying to get Type B funds, and Heather can explain this, but it's with the state enabling legislation, we can't directly use Type B monies for economic development in this instance, which is small business job retention.
Yes, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the essence of this board is, of course, has to do with primary jobs. Now, the definition of primary jobs has to do with a product or service that's provided to somebody that's outside of city limits, 50-mile radius. Now, with the services and products that these businesses do provide, they don't necessarily meet that criteria. So in order to do that, we were able to, again, kind of come up with a method that would essentially take the funding from here and relieve funding from general funds so that we're able to create be able to assist these businesses without having to focus too much on the creation of primary jobs, which again is what the board is intended to do.
And so a lot of the streets that are affected, those serve businesses, but those street projects are still going to move forward out of the general fund?
Right, yeah, so of the 3 programs that are in the Type B, that includes streets, affordable housing, and then economic development, there is no other substitution in the other 2. We don't have a program for affordable housing where we can swap monies, and the same is true for economic development, but streets has a pretty significant budget, and so there's a lot of opportunity to swap. So everything that is, every street that was going to get done is going to get done. It's just a substitution of revenue. So the streets that were going to get done with general fund monies now will get done with the Type B monies. And then the general fund monies that were going to pay for the streets will now fund this program. There won't be any delay in the streets that are going to get done. It's just a matter of bookkeeping with which revenues will be used to fund those streets. Okay. Yeah. So no street, that's an important point. We appreciate you bringing it up. No street is not going to get done that was planned in this program year. They will still get done on schedule as they were going to get done. The only thing that changes is the funding source. So instead of general fund, we'll use the Type B sales tax revenue.
Okay. So I don't want those businesses then to come to us and say, well, I'm having issues with getting trucks down roads and it's financially impacting my business.
Yeah, no, the streets that were identified to free up that monies for the swap were scheduled, and they will get done this year. No change in that.
If we get to critical in the drought restrictions and we start seeing more and more businesses impacted, are we prepared for those businesses to get a grant from this board as well?
That goes back to the biweekly reporting. Again, so right now, what we're trying to do is continue to get information from the businesses that are being affected to see what else we can do to assist them. It might be less restrictions, but it doesn't always have to be monetary assistance.
Because, I mean, there are things in the critical that are going to impact businesses all across the city, and I'm just afraid that we're setting the precedents here. Is my ultimate concern. I feel for everyone impacted by this, but I just don't know that we have the funds to do that.
Yeah, we don't. So what the 4 companies that are here today, at least 3 of them, I don't know if we have any mobile car washes, we all know, and they all see this really as a stopgap for a few months. What most likely is going to happen, based on the forecast, is we're gonna hit what we call emergency stage 4. That's most likely going to happen, and so then we're going to have a lot of businesses that have an impact. That's a different conversation. We haven't reached that yet in terms of a planning standpoint or even a forecast of what could happen. But if that happens, you're talking some of our major petrochemical companies, our refineries may have to shut down units, which is you're laying off employees at that point. So we're working hard to hope to keep this as far off into the future as we can by bringing on emergency water projects to include the wells. And I should say, for the record, we have been working on this for over a year. We didn't just start doing the emergency water planning a few weeks ago. And so over a year ago, we began assessing the Mary Rhodes pipeline to bring on the almost 45 million more gallons of water, and that's going to be happening in mid-March. Already we brought about 15 more, 35, I'm sorry, and we're going to bring 20 million more, so that's 35 million more water from the Mary Rhodes from our eastern reservoir. That's been in the works for over a year. The River Wells project is one that we're working on as well, and then the CC polymers. But the goal is to push off what could be that emergency stage 4 as far off into the future as we can. But all indications are we're probably going to hit it. But so when that comes, we'll have to, as we get nearer to that, we'll be advanced planning on what to do with businesses. But I think this program has a limited purpose, limited scope. It's for the business that are most impacted with stage 3. And the goal is to keep them in business for the next couple of months with the hopes that we could get some spring rain that help us all. Yeah, but,
Well, and I would liken it to your question, during COVID, we provided assistance during COVID. And so while COVID affected a lot of businesses directly and indirectly, the relief that was given were for those businesses that were affected directly. And I would liken it to what we're doing here in the fact that there may be a lot of businesses that are affected indirectly by the drought, but these are targeted businesses that are directly affected. And so while we may have more businesses come forward that are indirectly, I think trying to limit it to those that are directly affected by the restrictions that were put into place.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that comes to mind is in critical, there can be a stay on releasing water meters, is my understanding, and under the critical restrictions. So that's going to impact the entire building industry here. And there's hundreds of companies that make a part of that building industry, from inspectors to framers to painters. I mean, even the landscapers are affected.
Yeah.
By the building industry going down.
Sure.
So if we can't build new homes, if we can't, move forward, that's hundreds of businesses in addition to the petrochemical companies.
Yeah, right.
And thousands of people employed by those businesses. So I'm concerned about the precedents with the fact that it's looking like we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so we're clear on the drought contingency plan, that is just an option in there to be potentially implemented. It's not an automatic, just so you know.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate Drew Molly and his team meeting with those groups since last week's meeting.
Yeah.
I'm just, at some point, there's going to be a cap on the funding that we're going to have.
Most definitely, yes.
And so, I guess the only other question that's come up from this discussion is the COVID funding was $25,000. How did we get to the $50,000 for this, which is double that?
I think it was two things, and I think it was based off of two things. One was the feedback that we received through the COVID funding, that there was some sentiment that the $25,000 just wasn't enough, one. Two is looking at the cost increases that we've experienced since COVID. If you're looking at, how much it is for labor, how much it is for supplies, things like that, the cost have continued to go up. And so in talking with our team and talking with Lift Fund, we felt that $50,000 was a more appropriate number than the $25,000.
Okay. I think it would be, going forward, hopefully we don't have to do emergency funding like this, but having kind of more of the meat to the scaling of how these grants are awarded. When you look at $50,000 and the retainment of one job, that opens the door to a lot of questions. My other concern is, it says that it's up to businesses with multiple locations can apply separately for each location. Is there any cap on that?
not in this proposed, but that is definitely something we can put together as we go through the procedural side of it. We laid out the basic policy, but there will be procedural clarifications, and so that's definitely something that we can look at in the procedural clarifications.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say, like, without the procedural clarifications, it makes it hard to go, this is okay.
Understand, and part of the challenge we had as staff is trying to get this rolled out as quickly as possible, working with Liflin, working with our partners, and so while this is not 100% fleshed out, we feel like that we were able to provide a good framework for it, and then we can clarify some of this as we move through that with those procedures.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I also have some questions, and I owe everyone an apology if you heard my preschooler's voice. She's with me, and she's ill right now. Can y'all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So I really wanted to ask, I actually want to echo Ms. Summers' sentiments and concern about not being sure if this is a one-size-fits-all solution for, sole proprietors versus those who have been working to try to retain their employees. We don't, let's just be honest here, we don't have the funds here to meet the need for all the businesses in the city that will need it. When you talk about landscapers, irrigators, and you're including mobile car washes in this, that's a lot of people and businesses, especially if you're adding sole proprietors in. And I've got nothing against sole proprietors. I've been a sole proprietor myself before of a business. That said, is there within the process being discussed a way to prioritize businesses who are paying employees other than themselves? Again, this is not me trying to put down sole proprietors. This is not me not valuing the good work that a sole proprietor could do in the community. This is about, hey, if this is really about securing and saving jobs, how do we maximize that? How do we save the most jobs we can in this city?
Well, that is something that we can definitely implement as far as prioritizing what kind of businesses. I also want to make sure that this is understood. The model that we've created here today is actually based off of a model that Laredo implemented, actually very actually was like maybe about 5 months ago, where they're going through similar scenarios. So the adding of sole proprietors is actually something that our partners Lift Fund recommended to be included on there. But again, the feedback that we're getting here is definitely something that we can implement as we continue fine-tuning this program.
Again, this is not against sole proprietors. This is just realistically, how many businesses are we looking at being able to serve through this, and what is the need? Understanding that the need is likely much greater than we are able to serve with what we're able to fund today, and with the deepest sense of compassion and wanting to save as many jobs as possible. I think it would be good for us to at least look at prioritizing really maximizing jobs saved and looking at businesses who are employing others than a single employee. And then outside of that, do we have a criteria? Is there anything that would prioritize local businesses? There are some businesses, even within these spaces, that are frankly, they're not local. They may serve this area, but they serve other wider areas. And, while I believe there's drought everywhere and they could be affected by drought everywhere, again, we can't serve everyone. So understanding that we're trying to save local jobs, that's the mission. How are we looking at, what criteria are we looking at to prioritize local companies?
For sure. That one, if we can have the slide pull back up, that one of the requirements is that we do have to have, or the business does have to be within the city limits.
Okay, so the business, okay, so the city, it's not just their business activities, but the business itself must be located within Corpus Christi.
Yeah, the registration of the business has to be within city limits. Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then I just have another small question, which is, To echo the sentiments, $50,000 per business for so many businesses, it's a lot of money for our city to spend, but it's kind of a drop in the bucket compared to what a lot of these businesses are going to need, to where the need is. And so I would just like to echo the sentiment that we are starting a precedent here. And again, with all compassion and wanting, to do what's right for people and especially small businesses in this area. But is there an idea of what resources will be required in the future? This, like it's mentioned, $50,000 for some businesses may allow them to keep some jobs for a few months at most, if there isn't any relief. And I do understand some of the drought restrictions are changing or could be subject to change based on council vote. But we are creating a precedence. So is there a plan for that? Should conditions continue to become more hostile water-wise?
No, there isn't right now, board member. Holland, there is no plan right yet. That's something we will be looking at, though, with our water team, right? And let me just remind everybody, this is not unprecedented. So the COVID program was really for this city the first, and we did actually 2 programs. We did one that was so successful that we repeated it, I think, for $4 million, $3 million. It was 2. It was 1 and then 2, or $1 million initially, and then we came back because it was so successful that we sought for another $2 million. So that's the precedent that we're using here. And then, as Arturo said, Laredo has done something very similar. Their droughts is as prolonged as ours and having a bigger impact on their economy. But we will work on what happens next if we have to go into more water restrictions. And that seems like it's going to be more encompassing, and I'm not sure if we'd be able to have a program that could provide relief. But these 4 companies are the ones that in the past 4, 5, 6 months have come to the city to express concern about the water restrictions primarily. I know the home builders have a little bit as well. But these are the companies that we know of in the past 6 months that have expressed concern. That's why we're here today. We didn't go out and seek them. They sought us, expressing concerns in their business.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have one more question, if that's all right. In looking at the potential changes in drought restrictions on some of these companies, will we then be prioritizing based on likely need? For instance, if a mobile car wash can operate with, a filled bucket, and now, it may be more inconvenient, but they may be able to be in business. I know a lot of sole proprietors who are mobile car washers, and they will have the ability to be in business to some extent or another. Is that something that would receive equal consideration with, say, a landscaping company with product that they have to manage inventory, they have to rejuggle, and multiple employees they're trying to retain, for instance?
Yeah, I can tell you that when we first began this conversation, the major topic of this was job retention. One of the things that we, first heard of, and actually we heard it today, was the reduction of hours and the reduction of people. So one of the major points that we are trying to at least achieve with this program is to make sure that we're keeping jobs. While, of course, yes, the ultimate intent is to make sure that these businesses do not shut down, I can tell you that the overlaying topic of this conversation was the job retention portion of this.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Go ahead.
I guess just on the job retention, that's kind of the one question I really have. I know we're going to have the biweekly reporting, but are we setting these businesses up to fail? I mean, what kind of time frame do they have to keep the employees that they have employed?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of a question that we're not able to answer because we do not have a date of when these water restrictions will continue. So that, unfortunately, I'm not sure we would be able to require them to keep a certain number of employees for a certain number of time, since we do not have that water restriction date.
Okay, so yeah, there's no, we aren't putting something on there because I don't know about the COVID program, but like PPP, there was penalties if you didn't keep the employee. So we aren't putting any kind of restraint or restrictions on these.
Again, these are definitely items that we can consider as we create this program. That is something that we can look into.
Yeah, like I said, I just want to make sure we're not where we're setting them up for failure or having to pay that back in 2 months.
Any other questions from the board?
Go ahead. Just a couple, one's a comment, the other one's a question. The LIFT fund's going to be implementing the loan program, or so you mentioned something, they're going to put like a portal or something, the application on the website?
Correct.
Do we know more or less what time frame they have?
Yes, so we've been in conversation with them. They do need a few weeks to get the website up and running, obviously if it gets approved. If I remember correctly, well, the last conversation that I had with them was that fully up and running was roughly around the end of March. And I'm talking about like the website fully committed and being able to start taking in applications. Obviously, that's something that they have to do back of the house to, of course, make sure that the applications are going routed the right way and that everything, all the questions that we're seeking for, again, specifically as it relates to the criteria that you guys are mentioning here, is listed on that application. But again, from the conversation that I had with them, we're probably speaking about end of March.
Okay, so about 4 to 6 weeks or so. Yeah, because I know it depends on the condition of some of this businesses, it might be in a pinch too, so
yeah,
it needs to, just like COVID was, right? You got to deploy.
Right, and again, well, I don't want to overspeak for anybody here, specifically the businesses behind me. A lot of the comments that we got was that, especially in the irrigation types of operations, that they typically see a spike soon after February 14th, which again is something that we mentioned to Lift Fund, is that's when we really see their operations ramp up. That's when we really need to make sure that we have something. Unfortunately, I'd love to say that we would be able to get Lift Fund to make it faster, but that's the timeline that they gave us.
Okay. Yeah, and the other one, just on that, like echo board members' concerns, kind of like on the matrix. On the matrix of how we determine, like I was saying, 50,000 max, is 50,000 max sufficient? Or is, and I know it's going to be anywhere between 0 and 50,000, right? But if you have a business that let's say has 20 employees and you need, $30,000 a month, then even if you give them the max, you're only giving them a month and 3/4 of life extension, whether you have a business of 1 or 2 employees, then that can get you 4 or 6 months. It could, I don't know. But that's something that I know we don't have it yet, but if you're going to work on the matrix and the guidelines on how do we maximize if the board does move forward and allow this funding to go through, how do you maximize this funding to ensure that these businesses are still here, not 6 months from now, not a year from now, but 5 years from now? The gentleman that's been in business since 1987 or so, you definitely want to continue to keep those, those are local businesses and local jobs.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, I don't necessarily want to disclose any numbers because, again, that's a conversation that is ongoing with Lift Fund. But essentially what we're looking at is 2 different types of assistance. One of them is the job retention side, which, of course, can pertain to a specific amount per job saved. And then the other portion was the diversification of the types of operations that these businesses do, which, again, that's how we're trying to determine. Again, I don't necessarily want to give out any specific numbers because that's what we're trying to figure out. Lift Fund, through Lift Fund, again, based on what is happening in Laredo, and of course, some of the conversations that we've heard from the businesses about, again, how much do they pay their employees, what's the average rate. Again, the conversation about if we are to assist a job retention, for how long can we, really or truly, keep that job. So again, these are still definitely, as Ms. Heather mentioned, these are still definitely conversations that were ongoing. I really wish we had the answer today, but these are still very much in the works. Since we brought this program a couple weeks back. So we're still, again, just fine-tuning all this. But the structure of it, of course, just kind of is what we've laid out, up to $50,000 per business. Again, you've heard the logic or the reason behind that one, and the creation, not the creation, I'm sorry, but the 2 goals of it, which of course is the job retention, and then the diversification of operations is what we're trying to just solidify with Lift Fund.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. You know, I appreciate it. Thank you for what y'all are doing. I know it's, and you're on the go, so appreciate your time. And then the last comment, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one, but you know how we're saying we're gonna, you know, if you have multiple locations, you know, within the city, you can apply for different. So assuming you're gonna look at finances for each location, so one location might get, you know, 2x funding, and the other location might get 1x funding, so.
Correct,
it's
yeah,
not like-
and then
it's not
this
like
one.
the blanket.
Yeah, this one was actually a specific item that Lit Fund provided for us.
Okay.
Again, based on Laredo, they mentioned that, you know, that there were a couple of businesses that had multiple locations where they could assist one, but the businesses gave feedback as to, you know, if I have multiple locations, each one of them with different employees, number of employees, it didn't necessarily help them to just get assistance for one. But again, that's feedback that we got from Lit Fund. Yes, ma'am?
I'm so sorry. How are you legally defining multiple locations? Do they have to each have their own EIN or?
So that's something I can definitely get an answer to. Again, that would be from the feedback that we get from Lit Fund, how they define the difference between the two locations, again, just based out of the Laredo example.
All right, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for
Dr. Reedy?
speaking today.
Definitely, this is a very noble gesture and a very heartwarming initiative. So thanks for putting it together. Also, please include in your ongoing reviews, list of things, a financial review, so you can make sure that the businesses are all taking the initiative to find alternate resources. Personally, I heard of some businesses going all the way up to Victoria and other places that don't have water restriction and buying some gallons over there, coming back and trying to make do with whatever available resources are. And by no means, I think anybody will take the money and stop working and just use it. Like my colleague said here, it's not as much to last a lifetime. So ongoing financial review, I think, is a very good way of keeping a tab on how they're using it.
That's a really good point. Yeah, we could definitely talk.
Versus in COVID, it was a complete lockdown, right? So nobody could work at all. This is kind of more stratified in other options we have. So that's all I ask for, and thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We'll take that into consideration.
Did you have
I have a couple follow-up questions. The fees that Lit Fund charges to administer this program,
Yes.
are those just standard fees, and up to what percentage of fees are charged?
Yeah, so, the short answer is yes, they are standard. I'm not sure if you guys were aware that Lit Fund was actually the agency that helped the California fires. Again, something very similar that they assisted with as far as grant funding and being able to, you know, essentially disseminate the funds that were available for the California fires. So they do have, you know, experience on this, and they do have a typical percentage that they do charge for something like this. And that percentage typically ranges roughly about 17%, which is what we're seeing here.
17% is their fee
It is, and as I...
per grant.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, it does include the managing of the website, of course, processing all these applications. But that is a question that also came up. So right now, before I came to this meeting, I spoke to them and asked them for a breakdown of all these specific services that they would provide.
And so the website creation, is that a fee on top of the 17% of fees? That's not in addition?
No, it's included on there.
In the fees?
Yes.
Okay. You know, you've referenced this Laredo program multiple times, and is that program in effect right now?
Yes, it is.
I guess my question is, you know, if that program was into effect and we're modeling this after that, why don't we have the information that was used on how to award these grants if we're modeling, you know, even if it was just a loose standard? I think that's where a lot of us are held up, like how many jobs are we retaining, how much is being given per grant, you know, sole proprietorship versus companies employing multiple people. We don't really have any of this information. It's just a blanket kind of approval of a grant. If it's going to take till the end of March to get this website up and going, you know, is it possible to do a preliminary approval to get going on that website and get that additional information so that we can make an informed decision for a full approval?
Yeah, I think that is something that we can have our partners look into for sure. Again, they're just waiting for their approval, but they're aware that they would essentially be the ones processing all these applications. So we can ask them to do some preliminary, I guess, processing before the website is up.
Because I think up here, we all are focused on job retention is the feeling that I'm getting. And so, you know, making sure that those grants are scaled with that being the priority here, and that we're not setting up businesses for further down the line to have issues, or, you know, setting the precedent for more businesses coming asking for grants when these restrictions get implemented. You know, I think we just have to have that information. Is my feeling.
Yeah. I don't think I officially closed the public hearing, so the public hearing is now closed.
Sorry.
I would entertain a motion.
Oh, may I ask one question? I apologize. It's just that I understand that 17% from what you're saying is a very standard fee. However, just given that that does come near to 20%, given that what we are trying to do is essentially, you know, it's a very public service oriented thing. And I understand Live Fund works with us on public service oriented things, but was there any attempt to negotiate that fee?
Yes, so actually they originally came back to us with a 20% request. And we, again, through the conversations that have been happening over the last few days, that's, again, in fact, part of the reason why the number does not match on the agenda to the one that we're requesting is because we were still, I guess to some degree, we still are under negotiations with them.
Okay, I want to echo Ms. Summers' idea. I think that, you know, again, if the information's out there, Laredo's done it, and that exists, and, you know, I know that the city team is awesome. I know that you guys are developing, you know, sort of the program outline in conjunction with Live Fund. It would be good to see those before some sort of final approval for dispersal of funds. So is there a way we can vote on moving forward with this today, but also include an understanding of that this is not necessarily the final fund dispersal until we have these program parameters in place?
Can I jump in here? So, Chairman and members of the board, this is a time crucial issue, and so the landscapers and irrigators that are here are still laying off people today and tomorrow and the next day. And so we put this on fast track to, one, set up the big parameter, which is we want to have a job retention, economic development program that would benefit these at least these three industries, the mobile car washes, on as significantly impacted. And step one would be to approve the funding today, and then it goes to City Council tomorrow, and it could become effective relatively quickly thereafter. If we delay it today, that just means we delay everything by days or weeks, depending on Council's availability, this board's availability. So we could report to you what the parameters of the program would be. We recommend approval as it is today to let us do the due diligence tomorrow with City Council and then with the Live Fund. The Laredo program may be very different than this. It's maybe similar in scope, but it could be, I haven't seen it personally. I don't know if Arturo has. So we do have precedent of two programs in the past, and the Live Fund would use that as a kind of a setup standard. And we're going to be working, we have been working, but we'll continue to work expeditiously if this is approved today and tomorrow at City Council. And we can report back to this board here as well as City Council.
Yeah.
When the final.
And if I may, the item itself for today's consideration is actually just the transfer of funding. Is not necessarily approving the actual project itself. That, again, is going to be created through a general fund. So, again, for the essence of moving this quickly, you guys can approve this project. Again, it'll give us roughly about 24 hours to get a lot of these things nailed down. I'm more than happy to give a Live Fund a call soon after this and get a lot of these questions answered as quickly as possible so that we're prepared for City Council tomorrow.
May I go? Sorry. So, okay, 17% in fees. So the recommendation is for 2.38 million, correct?
Correct, yes.
And so, does,
Yes, I'm sorry, 2.38, basically 2.4 million is what it is.
rounded, yeah.
Yeah, the street, it's 2.4 million.
And does that cover lift funds fees?
Yes, it does.
So we're talking about $2 million in grants.
Correct.
And at 17%, almost $400,000 in fees.
Right.
Correct.
Let me start, $340,000 in fees.
Correct. Yes.
And that I mean, that's a huge number in fees. I think I'd like to know what that's going towards.
As I mentioned right before this meeting, I had a call with Lift Fund, and I requested a breakdown of all the services that are being provided within that admin fee. Of course, one of the biggest one is the creation of that website. Typically, what they charge for is the servicing of loans, because that's essentially what they do. But this one is just following up, processing the applications, vetting the applicants.
But this website should just be a fill-in application website. It doesn't need to be a dynamic website where so it shouldn't be that expensive of a website, right? Do we have a cap on the fee on the website generation?
What do you mean, a cap on the fee?
I mean, if the largest portion of these fees is going to cover a website, and it's $340,000 is the fees that we're paying to get this program off the ground, I think we would like to see what that website costs if that's the largest portion of those fees.
Yeah, like I said, I actually may have the list already in my email. I did request the breakdown. So unfortunately, I don't have it here with me. The phone call took place about 5 to 10 minutes right before this meeting, So
I guess for me, I'd like to see a cap on that fee.
Okay.
Because I don't think that's a very involved website if it's just a fill-in application.
Sure.
Especially if it's being administered through the Lift Fund program, that website already exists. So this would just be an add-on to that website.
Is the website the most significant fee you said? I missed that part.
No, it's the actual processing of the application.
Yeah, the website is not I'm not sure where that came from. The website is not the most significant part.
Yeah.
What we're paying for is expertise in doing loan application, in this case, grant application review. So there's certain things that have to be met before we grant the funds.
Yeah.
That includes, one, are you a business in the city? Are you in good standing? Do you owe money to the IRS? Do you owe money to the city? Did you really lose employees? What's your year-over-year profit margin? An assessment of the business to see, is it really a business? So there's a lot of work that's going to take place locally from the Lift Fund and probably some of their other staff that are in other cities other than Corpus Christi.
Yeah, so I assume it's
professional services. It's a bunch of professional service. It is a lot of professional service skill that we're buying for that up to 17%.
Yeah.
And the $2 million is a ceiling, so it could be in the end that the loans or the grants awarded are not even near the $2 million, and we'll report back to this board as this program is used.
Yeah, I assume it's a full grant administration. Through the life of the whole grant, right? Even the close out and all that, and follow up, and either monthly, quarterly reports and all that stuff you got to do.
Right.
But the question on it's a 17%, but it won't be. Let's say if you give grants that is just, I know your budget's $2 million, but if you only give $1 million a grant, then you're only paying 17% on. It's 17% on the actual grants. Awarded.
Right, that's correct.
Yes, I think I know where you're going with this. Again, with the fee itself, let's say that, in 6 months, we don't expend all of the $2 million, right? And again, we're paying this fee. It goes back to the same question about how long is the water restrictions going to last? While we may not be able to, let's say, give out the $2 million in the first 6 months, if the water restrictions continue, let's say for like an additional 6 to 8 months, we still have that contract to continue taking in applications, which might prolong this program itself, or Lift Fund administering this program for maybe about a year or so. So again, we're paying for that longevity too.
Yeah, I was saying, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of grant administration, so it could be. They could be administering the grant for a year or whichever.
Potentially.
But it's only, I guess it should only apply to if X company gets, $10,000 in grant, then the dollar amount that the Lift Fund will get is $1,700.
Right, yep.
Okay.
So the item on the agenda today is to approve an agreement with the City of Corpus Christi for $2 million for the repair of arterial and collector streets within the city. This is in the general obligation budget now. We're just taking it under Type B, and the city will negotiate the terms of lift fund and all of that.
Yeah, that's correct, Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, I just want to make that change that on the item itself, again, because of the timing portion, we do want to change that from a 2.4 to 2.38.
38.
Yeah.
So given that that's the item that we're supposed to be voting on today, do I have a motion? Motion to approve?
A second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And may I ask, we actually need to see Ms. Holland on screen to see her vote.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If we can have IT switch over for you.
Did you vote, Victoria?
I
Oh,
did.
yeah,
I voted aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So the ayes have it, and motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing and motion to approve an agreement in the amount not to exceed $12,500 for the University of Texas at Austin's Home to Texas program. Staff?
Yeah, good afternoon. Arturo Marquez, Director of Economic Development. Hopefully this item will be much, much simpler. Just as a recap from the Home to Texas program we spoke about last time. It is a 9-week summer internship program where it connects Corpus Christi students that graduated from the local high schools that now attend UT Austin and essentially try to bring them back after their studies. It encourages students to explore local career opportunities, and it supports community engagement and talent retention. Now, the benefits of it is, of course, retention of local talent, the strengthening connections between students and local businesses, the promotion of community development through internship participation, and to foster future leaders who understand local values. These are just items that we spoke about last time, but the benefits to the employers is that they gain highly motivated, educated interns. They bring in fresh ideas and perspectives, advance stall projects with additional support, and they can build connections with UT Austins for future recruitment. The internship experience is a 9-week, as I mentioned, internship program where they conduct research on community challenges and opportunities. They enroll in a UT Austin summer research and professional skill course, and they attend an end of the program community event. Now, the roles and responsibilities of the community is to identify and promote the internship opportunities, to assist with the scholarship funding, and to organize the end of the program celebration. For the employers, their responsibility is to provide a meaningful internship experience, to offer mentorship and professional development, collaborate on student project and research, and on the student, their responsibility is to work a full-time internship in Corpus Christi, conduct community-focused research, and participate in professional development coursework. Now, the proposed partnership and the funding model is that each student will receive a $5,000 scholarship. The University of UT Austin contributes $2,500 per employee. The local stakeholder, which in this case it would be you guys, would contribute $2,500 per student. And right now we are anticipating roughly about 5 students being able to come into this program with a total funding request of $12,500 under Type B. Now, there were some questions that were asked during the last presentation, which I mentioned I would get you guys the response. The first question was, how much on average do we pay or do we give students out of the existing internship programs that we have, that you guys fund year over year? And this is just on average. But the students that participate in the current internship program work from 19 to 20 hours per week. And the, of course, average semester is roughly anywhere from 15 to 16 weeks. So that gives them roughly about a payout or the participation from you guys of just over $2,000. So not necessarily the exact same, but roughly speaking, more in the same range. Right now, the community, Corpus Christi, The high schools that are here, located here locally, graduated and accepted roughly about 80 students in this past semester. So that's the pool that this program will be pulling from. Now, this has already created some buzz with the students at UT Austin about this program becoming available here at Corpus Christi. So they have already received, 12 applications, which again goes back into us. The intent is to fund at least 5 of these internships. There was also another question of a requirement of GPA, or not necessarily a requirement, but rather the question of whether the GPA is something that we look into. The straight answer is no. UT Austin does not look into the GPA. However, just pulling up the applications that UT received, there is an average of about 3.5 in GPA, with the lowest one being 3.1, and that is something that we can implement into this program if you guys so choose. However, the coordinator of this program says doesn't necessarily see that being what's called something that they can't implement. They can certainly do it, but he doesn't see a need because these GPAs that they already see are roughly on a B average, so he doesn't see a problem with that. And then I believe those were all the questions that were asked.
I did want to say, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and the last one, I'm sorry. And the last question was, what is the retention rate of these students transferring over from of course, this internship over to a full-time employment? And the answer that I received from UT Austin was that the program itself began in 2019. So again, these are first-year students. So they have now completed their first cycle, where the first cohort are now graduating from this college. So they do not have information on that, but that is something that they're trying to collect now. And in fact, the fact that you guys asked that question has really prompted them to make sure that they look at the efficiency of this program.
So I graduated from Carroll a few years ago, and most all of the graduates at Carroll that went off to college never came back. And that's a terrific drain on the talent of our community. So I think it's worth a shot, and we'll know pretty soon if it's effective or not. But even being an Aggie, I can go for a UT program.
I knew that was coming up.
Are there questions from the board?
I want to thank Mr. Marquez for getting the answers to our questions from last meeting, not last week. I appreciate that information. I think sometimes we get these programs that come before us and then we just automatically approve them year over year. So I'd like to see some metrics included, metrics of success added to this item, so that, should this be a success, or to help us, decide if this is a success that we want to continue funding for future years. And it's great that UT Austin does put some of their own dollars into this program as well. So, I think ultimately I'd like to see that 100% of the placement is into private sector or industry sector businesses here instead of governmental or nonprofit. I mean, that would, I think, be the ultimate. Those are the groups that we need to help the talent pool with. Yeah. And then I'd like to, have an emphasis in order to help diversify the types of jobs that we're placing interns into. Yeah. For success, to mean that those internship fields that are filled by this program to be outside what's filled by Del Mar or TAMU-CC, because I don't want to cannibalize that program with this one.
Yeah, and that's actually something that we'll definitely implement on this program, is that we're not cannibalizing anybody from the existing programs. So anybody that is doing an internship out of the companies from the ones from Del Mar and Texas A&M will not be participants on this one. Again, that way, so we have a pool to choose from, or the students have a pool to choose from.
Okay, so is there a way to include kind of those metrics as a part of this item?
Yeah.
Do we need to? I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I want to make sure that we're.
I agree. That was one of our main concerns in first hearing about this, was making sure that it wasn't going to provide competition for our existing excellent local program.
Sure.
Okay, we have an item. Is there any public comment Are there any public comments, Ms. Box, online?
No, sir.
Okay. So I would entertain close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve.
I motion to approve as presented.
Move. Second. Dr. Reedy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. And again, can we see Ms. Holland so we can see her vote?
I'm right here. I vote yes. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Type B, affordable housing update. You should have a folder.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Karen Costanzo, Planning Manager with the Planning and Community Development Department. Also with me here is Dan McGinn, the Director of Planning and Community Development. The item before you today is a briefing with no action required by the board. I'd like to just start in with a general overview of the Type B Affordable Housing Fund. I know we have some new members, but even for those that are seasoned, it's always helpful to have a kind of a reminder overview here. So currently there's about $3.4 million in uncommitted funds within this category. And the way these funds are allowed to be used is governed by Texas Local Government Code. It defines projects that support and promote affordable housing, and then directs us to read the U.S. Code for the definition of affordable housing. The U.S. Code then gives us both project qualifications and household qualifications. And the next couple of slides, we're going to go into what those qualifications are, and hopefully it will be a pretty brief but insightful overview here. So starting on what qualifies a project for the affordable housing funds. First of all, HUD publishes annually various limits. So on the for rent side, for example, the current 2-bedroom fair market rent is $1,390. In addition, though, a project has to either provide 20% of the units to very low income households, or all of the units have to be provided to low income households. And on the next slide, we'll get into those income cohorts in a little bit more depth into what that means. On the for sale side, you can see the purchase price limit currently for new construction is $282,000. So that's pretty straightforward. Where projects tend to find a little bit more of a hurdle to overcome has to do with the household qualifying requirements. So starting with just the income limits that are published annually by HUD, so in the green chart in front of you, those are the home income limits for 1, 2, 3, and 4-person household. The low income households fall between that 50 and 80% of area median household income. Very low is that 30 to 50%. An extremely low income cohort is below 30% of area median household income. So just to dive in onto what a 2-person income limit and what the rents would be, you can see that blue table just below that. A low income 2-person household can afford over $1,260 per month in rent. But you can see it gets a little bit more restrictive as you look at the very low and the extremely low income at $790 a month or $475 a month in rent. On the for sale side, it must be a low income household and it has to be their primary residence. And in addition, there's a requirement that either there are resale restrictions to another low income household, or there's a subsidy recapture provision so that if, for example, a low-income household buys one of these units and then after 5 years they sell it to a non-low-income household, that subsidy may need to be recaptured. Anything further, I defer to our legal counsel on. It gets very complicated on that front. So diving now into two specific proposals for funding related to the former Lamar Elementary School site, the infill housing and revitalization program that the city's been working on for over a year and a half here. The star signifies the location of this neighborhood, which is just south of Agnes and west of 286. You can see City Hall at the top of the map, just to give you a frame of reference as to where this neighborhood is located relative to where we're standing today. I won't read through the entire timeline, but again, this project launched in the very beginning of the summer of 2023 when the Ed Rochelle Foundation gifted vacant lots to the city. The city then released a request for letters of interest, and by September, we had 5 letters from developers. This program has evolved, so it includes a multi-family low-income housing tax credit project, as well as 4 single-family developers that will be putting rooftops on these vacant lots throughout the neighborhood. I will note and highlight that on June 16th, we did come and present a briefing to the Type B board within days of City Council approving the sale and conveyance of lots to the single-family developers. And so in the next coming months, we expect to start seeing some of those rooftops going up. We know that the single-family developers, as well as the multifamily developer, are going through both platting, permitting, and those projects are ongoing. We remain in contact with them extensively. Did want to provide a more detailed map of what this looks like. So these are all the lots that were conveyed to the city and were part of this program. You can see the Palms at Morris there in the center. That's the former Lamar Elementary School site, as well as the sites just to the north. And generally, we're talking about this being centered between 19th and 20th Street, Mary and Morris Street. And again, you can see the 4 single-family developers. We've got Habitat for Humanity Corpus Christi, Thanksgiving Homes, Come Dream, Come Build, as well as DSW Homes. And it's split up into tranches for these developers so that we have performance measures. They don't get their tranche 2 unless they build tranche 1. And if they're not able to build tranche 1 in a timely manner, then again, those tranche 2 lots will convey into tranche 3, which will be first come, first serve. So there's an incentive built in there for the developers to move through their lots and go ahead and get those rooftops in the community where currently they are just sitting vacant lots. So the first funding proposal related to this project relates to the wastewater lines. The estimate is $803,000. And you can see on 19th and 20th Streets, we have clay lines from 1940s. Those lines convey from north to south and feed into a slightly larger line on Morris Street, which is nearly 100-year-old clay pipe that then crosses over 286 and then connects to a newer 2022 line. And so we're looking at we've been working with our utility department to get these cost estimates to replace those clay pipes with newer PVC pipes, in support of affordable housing development. The second item is the Palms at Morris, and I want to take a moment and welcome and thank both Jackie Woodring and Brad McMurray from Prospera. They're here today and are able to answer any specific questions related to this project. The Palms at Morris, again, was awarded the low-income housing tax credits for 72 low-income units dedicated to senior households in our community. A little bit about Prospera. They were established about 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago, and they currently operate 16 communities within Corpus Christi, just shy of 1,300 affordable units. It's also worth noting that they provide resident services on site, such as employment training, connecting their residents with job placement partnerships, health fairs, food distribution services. And it's also notable that they provide these services to the surrounding neighborhood residents as well as the larger community. The ask currently is being finalized by the developer. It's around $1.25 million. They're still working on finalizing their permanent loan, and a lot of that is based on cost increase estimates for the Build America, Buy America program that they have to follow, as well as getting insurance. And again, they're here to answer those specific questions. And we can certainly open it up to questions at the end or now, if you prefer, but there's just a couple of slides to wrap up this presentation, if that's okay with the President. So wrapping up this presentation, staff wanted to bring forward some additional ideas for future consideration of how to use these affordable housing funds. This is a list that we've come together with. It's not a final list. There are certainly other opportunities that we can explore based on the board's direction. But one idea is looking at our existing older apartment housing stock. Some of it is naturally occurring affordable housing, but it needs to be updated and modernized, and maybe there's an opportunity, if there's interest, in bringing that modernization while also connecting it to affordability requirements. There's also going to be a potential new construction through low-income housing tax credits that may need support through this fund, or acquisition and rehab for affordable housing and being able to support those. A housing needs assessment to help us understand an inventory gap, so we have a better handle on what we have and what we don't have, and how we can fill that gap within our community, as well as home buyer down payment and closing cost assistance, and housing rehabilitation program for existing housing stock. Just to highlight some next steps, we expect the Palms at Morris to return for the March meeting with an action item for the board. And then the following meeting would be the wastewater infrastructure. That's predicated on the Palms at Morris. Again, going back to that first slide, in order to support and promote affordable housing. So that's tied to that project. And then looking at these other project opportunities and board recommendations for moving forward, during the May-June budget discussions for the next fiscal year, that would be an opportunity to bring that into the fold. And with that, I conclude my presentation. We stand for any questions, and like I said, we do have the folks here from Prospera if you'd like to direct any questions. I know they've provided a folder of information regarding their organization.
Ms. Summers?
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. So what is coming before us in the next two meetings is essentially 800, I mean, I know this is all just potentially coming before us, but $803,000 for the wastewater infrastructure for the Palms at Norris project, and then the supporting 20 lots. I don't have the number in front of me. But then in addition to that, 1.25 million.
Yeah, so the 1.25 million would be for the Palms at Morris itself. The $803,000 would be a city request, again,
infrastructure,
to support with infrastructure to ensure the investment is successful as we work on rehabilitate.
So it'll essentially use about 2/3 of what we have, this project. I mean, the whole encompassing thing.
Correct.
Okay. And then on page 32, I think it's slide 3, it says the HUD 95% of median purchase price limits for affordable housing. So existing single-family housing is $238,000.
That's accurate.
And new construction, which would be these Habitat for Humanity, Come Dream, Come Jail, DSW homes and Thanksgiving homes would be at the $282,000.
That's the limit that we have set in those agreements. To be clear, those single-family homes do not actually have to qualify their buyers, because we are using general fund monies to convey. So they actually don't fall under the Type B or any of the HUD funds. Now, Habitat for Humanity actually serves much lower income cohort. Mm-hmm. These are just the limits that are established. I think Thanksgiving homes, depending on who they're working with, they may have lower limits than this, as well as Come Dream, Come Build. But within our agreements with those 4 developers, we used the 95% for new construction.
Okay. I recall the last presentation, and I think there was some heartburn on the purchase price with the accompanying square footage estimates that these homes were going to be at? And also, are the developers paying for the lots?
Highly reduced price, it was $10 per lot.
$10 per the lot, so they can charge up to $282,000 for the home, but they're essentially getting the lot for free.
And they face the same market than any other home builder as well. So that's what they can charge out. That's the limit that we've established. But if that's not something that the market will absorb, they'll have to adjust their sales price to what, if it's lower within the market.
Okay, I feel like that's a really high number with the lot essentially being for free. And would like to maybe see that limit to be even more affordable for the new construction, especially given what's out there.
We can certainly take that into consideration. Again, this is an excellent learning experience for us as we launch these types of neighborhood revitalization programs.
Okay. And we will add, so as Karen said, the current project that we're talking about for the single-family homes, that was not funded through the Type B affordable housing. And so we would definitely take that in consideration for anything we would do moving forward utilizing these funds. The price limits or any of those qualifications were set by City Council because the program did use general funds. It was not using Type B affordable housing funds.
Okay. I want to give, just from construction side, that seems really high when the lot is free. And I do remember these being about 1,200 to 1,800 square feet when this was originally presented to us. And I would say that there are competitive products that are out there that are significantly under this price.
And just a reminder that this is just the top limit that HUD sets. I don't know if we know yet what price range that those houses are going to be sold for yet.
But I do think that would be, going back to some of the earlier agenda items, having that data in order to approve these, the $800,000 in infrastructure that these specific projects would also benefit from.
Exactly.
I'd like to see this kind of tightened to get it more affordable.
Sure, we can. And really the infrastructure, while it will help with those single family housing, a lot of our concerns and the reason why we're bringing it forward is in support of the Palms at Morris, which those are, and Prospera can speak to that more, those are greatly income restricted. Rents are restricted. And so unlike the single family housing, they do fall within those parameters.
Yeah, and I understand that. Sure. I think I'm more concerned on that price. I did have a question for Prospera. I wanted to thank y'all for being here today. You have 16 communities across is it just Corpus Christi?
We actually have about 52 properties from Austin all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley, but that represents what we've got in the city of Corpus Christi proper. We also have a property in Robstown and Sinton, so we're throughout the whole region. I'm sorry, my name's Brad McMurray. This is Jackie Woodring. She's our CEO.
And those are 100% the low income to very low income units. Those are 100% full here?
Absolutely. Well, there's two different things. We have project-based Section 8, and so that's based on your ability to pay, which is always at about 100%. We also have low-income housing tax credit, which is what we're proposing here with the Palms at Morris, and those typically run between 92 and 98%. It's a traditional property that people have jobs, they're working, and so there's turnover, there's leasing, there's make-readies and that kind of thing. But absolutely, it's a highly occupied property.
Okay, but it's not at these 30 to 50 and 50 to 80, it's above.
No, that's exactly what it is.
For above that.
No, we've got two sets. One is the Section 8, which is based on your ability to pay. The other is the tax credit, which if you look in the little thing that I gave you, this page right here that has, did you get this?
Perfect. Yeah.
So basically, if you look at that page, you'll see the different level. That is basically all of our properties are that way, or they're project-based Section 8.
Okay.
So you can see, like, if you look at the presentation that we had previously, if you look at that line that says 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, your fair market rent, which is a HUD number, it's not what your market rent is, it's what it decides it based on its formula, typically much lower than market. That amount for a one-bedroom, that amount for a one-bedroom is $1,128 from the previous presentation. That's not on your sheet.
Okay.
That was in the previous presentation. And you can see that we'll be charging $374, $670, and $818. If you look at the two-bedroom, it's $1,390. We're at $448, $803, and $981. So these are extremely affordable units. Again, you've got to be able to pay that, so you have to have income 3 times that to be able to do it. So typically they're working, but they're lower income and working.
Okay. And this is the mix that would be at the Palms at Morris?
That's the exact mix, yes, ma'am, the 72
Thank you.
units.
Appreciate it.
If I could I speak for a couple of seconds just on the project in general? Just listening to the presentation, I wanted to make sure that we were clear. We actually already have permits, so we don't need any public infrastructure improvements to do this project. Okay, so it has already been approved by the city. It's ready to go. The overall project that we're really excited about being a part of is this revitalization of the whole area. And typically, as when we first did our neighborhood meeting and tried to get people's input, they alluded to the fact we want single family, not multifamily. The issue that you run into is you've got a lot of vacant lots, and you see the price, and there's going to have to be people that buy it, and if they don't buy the first units that come available, the next units aren't going to be built. The excitement about this particular project is that it gets built, and you've got 72 units. So instead of a big, large, open field with something's going to happen someday, you've got a beautiful high-end. These are beautiful properties. You can see from the package, if you look, we just completed, where's that good-looking picture? There it is. The Palms at Blucher. This picture right there. That is what we're going to build, the larger picture, but this one is the Palms at Blucher. It's also a 72-unit project. It's not my favorite, frankly, design, but it's the way projects are being designed right now. This is market. This is what people like. But you can see it's high-end because we're getting about $16 million of equity into this project. And the people that are putting that equity in want to make sure that they could rent it if for some reason something went bad and they foreclosed, which has never happened to us in 30 years. But they want a top-of-the-line product. That's what we're building. And so you're going to have that top-of-the-line product in the middle of this neighborhood that now it's going to be more attractive. You're also going to have those rooftops that attracts commercial, which increases the sales tax. You've also got something with this project that's really exciting. Unfortunately, in the area, we had higher crime. It was actually a little bit higher than what the state allows to do one of these projects. So we worked with your police department, who was incredibly helpful, and we were able to demonstrate that the crime rate was below their maximum. And in doing that, we talked to the police and said, well, we want to make sure that we're putting our properties in a good area. What's going on? Are we really going to have this? Is it going to be better? And they said that Mary Street is just a thoroughfare at night. And if somebody could close part of Mary Street, that would be great. We actually are going to close it. It's been abandoned between 20th Street and 19th Street. That's going to break up that thoroughfare. So we think this is not only going to help commercially, help the area revitalize, provide affordable housing, it's also going to help mitigate the crime. So this is an outstanding project in so many ways. And I can give you more detail. It's all in there. We had this project and it worked. Construction has gone crazy. Interest rates have gone crazy. That's what's happened. And so now we're coming to say, hey, can you make up this gap? Because we've already gotten $15 million of equity. We're putting $1 million of our own money into it. We're deferring as much of the developer fee as they will allow us to defer because it's got to be paid off in 15 years. So we are committed to this project. And I just wanted to make sure that you got a bigger picture about what's going on and see if you had any questions, any information that you needed for the next time in March when we come before you and ask for consideration. Excuse me. The last thing I want to say, this is a not to exceed amount. So this is worst case. The reason we don't have a final number is because we're waiting on an appraisal and a market study from the banker. With that number, they will give us our final loan amount. We gave you the loan amount in this information, which is this last page. It kind of walks you through where we were and where we are now. And so with this, we're showing a loan amount of $800,000. What happened was we started off with $2 million, but then interest rates went up and our expenses went up according to our bank. So they won't loan that much money. That is worst case. We anticipate it's probably going to be closer to 1.1 million, but we don't know for sure. We should know that by about February 19th. If that's the case, then we're only going to be asking, not only, it's a huge amount, but $950,000. That will be finalized by the March 17th. And please understand, if we are in some way able to find other funds, we will give you back the difference. You say, when has a developer ever done that? The Village of Greenwood, another project we have, you all gave us $1 million because we needed it. Then we were able to go to the General Land Office and increase the award because we were able to spend it and others weren't. We gave you back that $1 million. So this is a not to exceed. If we can find other sources, we will return that money. Thank you.
So you'll have a specific proposal in March?
We absolutely will.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Heather, is there any report from the city?
No, there is not. Thank you.
I don't have my, no further business. This meeting is, excuse me.
Real quick, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't able to make the last meeting, so I don't know. I know I emailed staff and I think yourself I was in Austin at a conference.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Do we have our regular meeting coming up in 2 weeks?
Okay, so we'll do it on that one? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually do a special meeting. We don't review and approve minutes. It's a special meeting. We'll do that at a regular meeting. So at the next regular meeting, then we can handle that.
Yeah, we'll do it next time.
Just don't want to forget. I know last time.
No, you notified us ahead of time.
My last term, I forgot one. I think it was the only one that was that.
Oh, by the way, in your absence, you owe. We're adjourned.